I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, you would not know it from the weather in Washington, but spring has finally arrived. Even though it is cold and rainy outside, there is no mistaking the change in seasons in Washington. Every spring, the congressional office buildings are busy with people who want to visit their representatives. I look forward to many of these visits. I look forward to seeing families who have traveled all the way from Utah to see for themselves and to show their children the Capitol, the White House, the Declaration of Independence, and the monuments to many of our nation's greatest heroes. But you really know it is spring in Washington because the halls of Congress are filled with people here for one purpose, and that is to ask for more money. When budget season hits, interest groups descend on the Capitol with one-track minds. Like the swallows to Capistrano, they return to the same spot each year to ask for more dough. The message is always the same. Their issue or their program is always critical, always essential. Liberals like to beat up on businesses and demand their shared sacrifice. Translation, you better pony up. But the interest groups that thrive on taxpayer dollars always seem to be exempt from this required sacrifice. Somehow I don't think this is what the founders had in mind when they guaranteed individuals the right to petition the government. Petitioning the government for more cash is somehow less inspiring than petitioning the government for redress of grievances. I appreciate the sentiment of the new member of the House of Representatives who hung a banner in his office that read, "If you are here to ask for money, you are in the wrong place." The fact is, Washington has an enormous spending problem. Washington is addicted to spending. And the first step toward recovery is acknowledging that you have a problem. I suppose that we can take some solace in the fact that few persons in a position of responsibility now deny that our deficits and debt are a problem. Facts have gotten in the way. This morning, the Financial Times had an above-the-fold headline that reads, "U.S. lacks credibility on debt, IMF says." No kidding. Our total debt is now over $14 trillion with no end in sight. The administration is now asking for the Finance Committee and Congress to raise the debt ceiling by $2.2 trillion just to get this country through next year. The President's first two budgets were a tragedy. But when the United States was staring down the barrel of a third straight trillion-dollar-plus deficit, his fiscal year 2012 budget morphed into parity. Recognizing the shellacking his party took over the issue of big spending, the White House had to talk a big game about deficit reduction. But their numbers really never added up. This is how the Washington Post described the impact of the President's budget. After next year, the deficit will begin to fall, quote, settling around $600 billion a year through 2018 when it would once again begin to climb as a growing number of retirees tapped into Social Security and Medicare. Americans quickly saw this budget for what it was. Business as usual, spending as usual. So today, the President tried a do-over. He was going to give a really big speech. That seems to be his go-to move. And this time he was going to convince Americans that he is really, really serious about deficit reduction. Unfortunately, he bricked this shot as well. We're approaching a debt crisis, but the President seems willing to run the clock until the next election. This is a very dangerous game. I think we need to be clear about how precarious our nation's fiscal situation is. The fact is, we could be closer to a debt crisis than even the most pessimistic accounts. Because of this administration's dramatic ramp-up in federal spending, Americans are deep in federal debt. Currently, federal debt held by the public equals a modern record of about 69% of the nation's economy, known as the gross domestic product. The Congressional Budget Office reports that current tax and spending law takes that figure to 76% of GDP over the next 10 years. To put that number in perspective, consider the following statistic. At the end of fiscal year 2008, as the George W. Bush administration was winding down, the debt held by the public reached about 41%. That's less than 2.5 years ago, in contrast with the 69% of today. As bad as the 76% figure is, it gets worse under the President's fiscal policies. President Obama's third budget was released on Valentine's Day this year. If Americans were expecting some love and concern from our President, they sure didn't get it. The administration's figures claimed that the President's budget would raise debt held by the public to 87% of GDP. That's the administration's figures. I have a chart that shows the growth in the debt. The national debt as a percentage of GDP. The current policy happens to be the red. The Obama 2012 budget is the blue. As you can see, by 2021, the national debt will be 87% of our GDP. Well, on Friday, March 18, 2011, CBO released its estimates of the President's budget. These estimates showed that debt held by the public would grow to 87% of GDP in 10 years, just like it says on there. On the far right, that alarming figure is also on the chart. Now let me put this another way. According to the Congressional Budget Office, if we continue current tax policy, don't raise rates, fix the AMT, provide a state tax relief, and provide for a fix to the physician payment system, or the SGR it's known as, policies supported by clear majorities of Americans, by 2021, debt held by the public will reach 97% of GDP. Now, for those watching C-SPAN whose jaws just hit the floor, I hate to tell you, but the news might even be worse. As bad as these numbers are, and they are very, very bad, they could be dramatically understating the fiscal consequences of our current deficit spending policy. Now, this is because we face a hidden potential for even greater levels of additional federal debt. We may be in the middle of a debt bubble. The stated current level of debt may grow astronomically without any policy changes. Let me say that again. If we do nothing to our current policy and continue to spend, the debt we currently hold may prove disastrous. Here's what I mean by a bubble. I'll use an example that we are all too familiar with. An economic bubble can be described as significant trade volume in different products or assets with inflated values. Interest rates affect everything in our economy, from the monthly payments we make on a new car or home to the amount we are able to save at a local bank. Interest rates during both the dot-com bubble and the housing bubble were driven by policies at the Federal Reserve. During 2001, the Federal Reserve lowered the federal funds rate from 6.25% to 1.75%. The Fed further reduced the rate in 2002 and 2003, this is the federal funds rate, to around 1%. These low rates had a substantial effect on the growth of mortgage lending between 2001 and 2004. The share of new mortgages with adjustable rates, which was around 20% in 2001, was more than 40% by 2004. Adjustable rate mortgages. Currently, just like at the beginning of the last decade, interest rates are very low. 10-year Treasury rates are currently around 3.5%. During the past 2 years, this administration has spent recklessly, raising the total debt from $10.6 trillion to over $14.2 trillion. We are currently spending 40 cents of every dollar on interest, paying China and others who hold our debt. But what will happen when interest rates rise? Under projections from the CBO, 10-year Treasury note rates are expected to rise from current levels to 5.3% in 2016. What happens if interest rates rise to levels seen during the 1980s or the 1990s? During the 1980s, rates on 3-month Treasury bills and 10-month notes rose to over 8% and 10% respectively. During the 90s, rates on 3-month and 10-year notes rose to 5% and 6.6% respectively. Exactly like the housing bubble, as a nation, we're falling into a national debt bubble. We continue to spend on our national credit card while interest rates are low. Just as many purchased homes with adjustable rate mortgages. Eventually, the adjustment kicked in, the low-rate bubble popped, and many Americans found themselves facing higher mortgage payments that were unaffordable. We're exposing ourselves to more debt than we should. The cost of that decision is severely understated. That cost, as laid out by CBO, could be astronomical. Under President Obama's 2012 current budget, the CBO projects deficits for each of the next 10 years, resulting in an estimated $10 trillion being added to the public debt, a 100% increase. Under the scenario where interest rates rise to the historical average of the 1990s, the public debt is projected to grow an additional $8 trillion, or a 77% increase. Under the scenario where interest rates rise to the historical average of the 1980s, the public debt would grow to $12.1 trillion, doubling in size. It's right here on this chart. You can see it. This is a chart showing the public debt over the next 10 years, from 2011 to 2021. And you can see the green on the far right of each column is the 1980s interest rates. The blue in the middle of each column is the 1990s interest rates. The red happen to be the current baseline estimates, which almost everybody who looks at it seriously will say are too low. If the interest rates return to levels of the 90s without any policy changes, the debt, as you can see, grows significantly. According to this chart, if you have the 1980s interest rates, we'll hit 116% increase. If interest rates return to the 1980 levels, boy, are we in trouble. Those who argue against spending restraints now are akin to the bubble inflators of the housing industry, encouraging more and more spending and consumption, never considering what will happen when the rates adjust. This is why it is urgent, I would say imperative, that we cut spending now, and that we face the piper here and cut spending now. Not after the next presidential election, not next year, not next month, immediately. We cannot afford either the short or the long-term effects of this dangerous spending addiction. American taxpayers understand what Washington has to do. It's time to cut the national credit card and stop this reckless spending. Unfortunately, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and their liberal progressive base keep urging for more taxes. I personally don't get this. I don't think Americans have been sitting at home thinking, you know what this debate over government spending has been missing? A proposal for a giant tax increase. I don't think they're thinking that. But to borrow from Bruce Dickinson, Democrats have a fever, and the only prescription is more taxation. When it comes to dealing with our budget deficits and our exploding debt, Democrats have a one-track mind. They claim that they are serious about spending. The White House is touting reforms to Medicare and Medicaid to get spending under control. But Obamacare is not Medicare reform. And real Medicare reform will entail repealing Obamacare. The health care bill took $500 billion out of Medicare to finance a $2.6 trillion in new government spending. And instead of taking responsibility to ensure the long-term viability of Medicare, the President did what he seems to do best. He punted decision-making to a board of unelected bureaucrats. Obamacare is not Medicaid reform either. States are already facing a crushing collective deficit of $175 billion. But instead of helping the states to lift this burden, the President's health care bill larded on an additional $118 billion Medicaid expansion on the states. That's on top of the $175. That's almost $300 billion that the states will be in debt. The White House has circulated a fact sheet on the President's attempt at deficit reduction. It claims $340 billion in savings over 10 years, quote, an amount sufficient to fully pay to reform the Medicare Sustainable Growth Rate, SGR, physician payment formula while still reducing the deficit, unquote. However, the President's budget estimated the cost of a 10-year doc fix at $380 billion. Assuming Congress utilizes the President's proposed savings to fund a doc fix, the net deficit increase from the White House's health proposals will be at least $40 billion. Now, with due respect, when the Medicare Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, which our seniors depend on, is scheduled to be insolvent in 9 short years, that is totally inadequate. So what are we really looking at in this vaunted deficit reduction plan? Yesterday, in anticipation of the President's remarks on deficit reduction, his spokesperson gave it away when he said, quote, the President believes there has to be a balanced approach, unquote. Translation, you better check your wallet. The Wall Street Journal said that tax increases are on the table. But Americans know that for Democrats, tax increases are never off the table. Most Americans understand that they are the centerpiece of Democratic Party policy. America was waiting for the President to propose something new today. Instead, he dusted off his proposal to end the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts for households and businesses earning over $250,000 a year. Citizens wanted something innovative, maybe a little hope and change for a change. But instead, they got the fiscal policy of Walter Mondale and Michael Dukakis. Under the President's proposed fail-safe for deficit reduction, taxpayers who use their own dollars to deduct mortgage interest, make contributions to charities, save for education, or save in a pension plan will be treated the same as spending for Nevada's Cowboy Poetry Festival. To me, they are not the same. But to the President, they are. David Plouffe, the President's senior advisor and former campaign manager, had this to say about the President's proposal, quote, people like him, who've been very fortunate in life, have the ability to pay a little bit more. Well, that's big of him. We hear this quote quite a bit from rich Democrats. Please tax us more, they say. Well, I know a lot who don't say that, I'll tell you that. Well, as the ranking member on the Senate Finance Committee, I feel obligated to inform Mr. Plouffe that the President and all those rich liberal Democrats who are eager to pay higher taxes can do just that. They can write a check to the IRS and make an extra payment on their tax returns to pay down the federal debt. The option is right there at the bottom of their tax return. America awaits these checks. This might be a good talking point. I am sure it is pulled really well. But I have yet to hear the economic or fiscal rationale for raising taxes on small business creators and American families. It is certainly not deficit reduction. Raising taxes may be politically necessary for Democrats, but it will do little to reduce the deficits and debt that are at their root spending problems. An article from the Tax Policy Center shows just how delusional it is to try and balance the budget through tax increases. In an article titled Desperately Seeking Revenue, the authors laid out what types of tax increases would be necessary absent spending changes to reduce federal deficits to 2% of GDP for the 2015 to 2019 period. This is a remarkable article. Its authors concluded that tax increases consistent with the President's campaign pledge not to raise taxes on individuals making less than $200,000 or families making less than $250,000 would require the top two rates to go from 33% to 85.7% and 35% to 90.9%. Now, this article makes clear, yet again, that we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We are not going to make meaningful deficit reduction. We are not going to get the debt under control by taxing the so-called rich. Taxing citizens and businesses more is not going to fix what is essentially a spending problem. Consider this chart, this one right here. Projected revenues from individual income taxes 2011 to 2021. Now, the top red baseline, that's the CBO baseline, the current CBO baseline. The middle blue line is the President's budget plans. The bottom orange line is to extend the 2001 and 2003 tax cuts and index the AMT, the alternative minimum tax. You can see that under the President's budget plans, under the CBO baseline, and under the Republican position, individual income tax revenues as a percentage of GDP are going up. Taxes revenues are already going up, and they are not getting us where we need to be as a nation. Yet in his remarks today, the President's landmark proposal is little more than tax increases. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. When the Drudge Report announced yesterday that the President was going to recommend tax increases, it did not even merit a flashing red light. Drudge just pushed it to the side because it is really no longer news to anyone that Democrats want to raise taxes. The real news would have been if the President stood up to his political base and made meaningful recommendations for entitlement reform. The people of Utah and taxpayers around the country would have stood up and listened if the President backed a serious rollback of domestic non-defense discretionary spending, which has exploded on his watch. Instead, they got the economic philosophy of President Carter. And I don't think that maybe that statement isn't fair to President Carter. I don't know. Seems like it has all the elements of fairness. Ultimately, this spending crisis cannot be ignored. And both voters and markets will respond to the leaders who take this issue in a serious way. One of the problems with our colleagues on the other side and their wonderful desire to increase taxes on everybody is that those tax increases would not go to paying down the deficit. They'd go for more spending. And that's been the case for all my 34 years here in the United States Senate. Every time we've raised taxes, it hasn't, over the long run, gone for bringing down the deficit. It's gone to make more spending. We wonderful members of Congress, we have all kinds of ways of spending money. And our Father in heaven knows that we get a lot more credit for spending through this country up through the years than we do for conserving. On the other hand, I don't think there's much credit coming today. I think most everybody in America, including all those Democrat millionaires who supported the President last time, maybe not all of them, but a good percentage of them, are saying enough's enough. And Mr. President, I'm hoping that the President will give a speech someday that really will make a difference on spending, because that's clearly what the problem is. Not tax revenues, it's spending. And I think we've had enough of that. And I think the American people, whether you be Democrat or Republicans, have had enough of that. Even though we wish we could do more, we wish we could help more people, we wish we could provide a new car for everybody in America, I'm sure. But that isn't reality. It's time to face up to reality and to get this government spending under control. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
I should ask consent the period of morning business for, are we in a quorum call?
Yes,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I ask consent the call the quorum be terminated.
without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the period of morning business for debate only be extended until 6 p.m. this evening. Senators during that period of time be allowed to speak for up to 10 minutes each, and at 6 p.m. I be recognized.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we continue to work on agreement to move forward on small business. We have three main, I shouldn't say main, but I think they're the ones that we are focused on. One is an amendment offered by Senator Cornyn, one by Senator Hutchison, and one by Senator Sanders. There are others who now have come into the fray, and it's making it very difficult to get votes on these three amendments. But that's where we are. It's unfortunate. I think each of these amendments were offered in good faith. We should be able to have a vote on them, even though they have virtually nothing to do with the small business bill. But I'm going to continue to work to see if I can get a universal agreement to get these amendments disposed of either by passing or bringing them up and move toward completion of this bill. There's no reason that we shouldn't have been able to do something the last 2 days, but that's where we are. Overhanging all of this, of course, is the continuing resolution, which we need to work on tomorrow. And if people have any feelings about that, I wish they would come to the floor to discuss it. I note the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Did the chair consent request? Yeah.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Conklin.
roll.